Garden update. Just picked myself a lovely cucumber. There's a few more growing on the vine back here in the black bed. Looks like our mystery tomatoes are finally putting on fruit. Snapdragons are still going great. The squash is still putting off its squash. And the melons back here are starting to pick up. I haven't seen a whole lot of blossoms on the watermelon in particular, but everything else seems to be putting off little tiny fruit and blossoms. The mystery plant that sprung up, I'm pretty sure is a pumpkin. Pretty sure it's turning a wonderful orange. It's a squash of some sort, I'm very sure. The plum tree is truly past its harvest, and now I am just gonna keep it healthy, trim back the holly at its base, and yeah, prepare what to prune back in the winter. The grapevines are still going strong. The grapes in the back are getting pretty big. Still not super big, but they're still growing, so that's good. Compost bin is very full. Yeah, the corn is starting to dry out more and more. The next batch. And then there is the stuff that was direct sown to still have more green on it than not. The sunflowers, I don't know if you can tell the difference between the sunflowers and the super tall dandelions, but the sunflowers are also starting to really show up. I haven't seen any starts of any heads yet, but they are doing their little follow the sun pattern, so that's promising. The honeydew melons, oh look, didn't even notice this before. They have their first blossoms. And these are from seeds I just saved from a honeydew from the grocery store. I don't even know if it was organic. So I'm pleasantly surprised they were working this well. The strawberry plants have a few last fruits on them, but really they're starting to peter out. I don't see very many new flowers on them. I finally got around to trimming the lavender. This is the side that was trimmed first. This is the side that's trimmed next. And so those are a little farther along. These are just getting its new flowers back. The potatoes in the bed in the wine barrel are going pretty strong. This watermelon has a flower on it and a few more on the way. So yeah, that's finally looking a bit more promising. The beans over here are starting to peter out, but the cucumber is starting to pick up pace. So it's a nice trade-off there. Lots of peppers. On my extra peppers, I wasn't sure where it's going to survive, so that's nice. And more peppers. This is the peppers did the best in this bed. There's like 3 plants here. There's like 6 plants over there. There's really a lot. And they look healthier than everywhere else. So that is nice. The raspberries are still coming in strong. They're starting to get a much darker color to them. I've been harvesting some of the larger tomatoes off of these outside of the greenhouse. This is Pilsner Rossi, this is Amish paste. I had 2 in from that. I grabbed the ones that were on this front here. So they are starting to ripen, the lower fruit. And the upper fruit, it's still like setting flowers and actually putting on fruit. Some of them are drying out, but I'm trying to remember to like tap them so that their flowers get pollinated. Peppers over here, they're not doing bad. They're just not doing as well as the ones in the square bed. So I definitely think I'm going to keep planting the peppers in the square bed. And maybe actually put some squash or some melons over here next year. Because it's pretty partial shade with the greenhouse and everything else growing up over here. And I think that's why they did so well in the back bed, was because they had the partial shade from the netting over it and from the tree. So yeah, next year I think melons and squash over here. Although the tomatoes over here are these were the last planted tomatoes. And they've got fruit on them. This one's got a lot of fruit on it. So yeah, they're looking It's much later than the rest of the tomatoes, but like that kind of works. It's kind of working in stages. It's, you know, as some others are starting to peter out, these are coming in. So it's actually worked out quite well. This blackberry bush is going crazy. I trimmed it the other day and it still looks wild. Oof. These cucumbers over here, these are the Yamato. Here, let me show you. These are the Yamato long. I'm not sure when to pick them. Some of them are curly, some of them aren't. Yeah, they're definitely doing better here in the semi-shade of the blackberry bush than they were over there against the south side of the shed. I've harvested a few cucumbers off of this one, and now the whole plant is starting to turn yellow, so it might be, these are early fortune cucumbers, and the plant itself doesn't look so great, although there are still some fruit on it. So we'll see. We'll see how well that lasts. I still got more cucumbers off. I got 3 cucumbers off of it this year that were like good, decent, this size or bigger. So like already 1,000 times better than last year. The blackberries are now going into full swing. I've collected about a handful every other day of just the first little black ones, but pretty soon, maybe by my birthday, I'll have a big harvest. Still lots of tomatoes coming from the tomato plants inside the greenhouse. I have noticed that all the determinants were first, and that like this is an Amish paste, and it was taking a very long time, but it's definitely making a lot of big fruit, and it's making them higher up the plant than the others. I don't know why. It's just an interesting observation. A lot of the others had a bunch of low-hanging fruit that ripened really early, and the Amish paste didn't really ripen any low fruit, and only started setting fruit once it got pretty high. Don't know if that was just the placing or the lighting it got this year or whatever, but that's what happened. So now I'm seeing a lot of these start to come in on those. The peppers in the bags are really the worst looking peppers, even more so than the ones that were near death over there. So I don't think doing peppers in bags worked so well this year, and it wasn't the greatest last year. So maybe I'll move past that. Maybe I will save the bags for something else, like a potato or something. Maybe even try one of the determinate tomatoes in there. These pepper plants aren't making a whole lot of peppers. I think I took off 1 from all 4 of these. Not a lot. These ones over here, these are the, I think these are the Korbachi. They're doing a lot better. They have a lot more fruit on them. They're getting bigger in size. This is my note to self. No determinants in the... I think I just walked into a spider web. No determinants in the greenhouse next year. They did great in here. But because they make so many limbs, it's hard to keep everything orderly and be able to actually reach all of the fruit properly and tie up everything properly. So I think determinants need to go in containers where I can get to them at every end. So I think the wine barrel planters would be a good place for the determinants next year. Melons. The rinds are starting to change color. I was pretty sure these were the Kiku melons, but they're not turning pale. And they're just getting white on their rinds. So maybe they're the Minnesota minis. I won't know until I crack one open, but I don't know. I think I'm gonna wait for the stems to dry up, or maybe I'll get impatient. But for now, I'm waiting. The 3rd round of potatoes, yeah, it's doing good. I'm not mounding them this time because they didn't do that last time, so I'm not doing it this time. The beans are coming in good over here. This melon, that melon's also taking off now too. It's got a few flowers on it. This melon is taking off a lot, and I've tied it up, and I've given it just a little bit. I'll put more string and actually make a trellis out of it once it's proved it can actually get up that high. It's taken this one was planted at the exact same time as this one, and this one is already like 5 feet tall, and this one is just barely starting to get off the ground. So we'll see. I have hopes, and maybe I'll get staggered harvests but this one is definitely a lot slower growing. I'm definitely going to, after the season is over, pull out everything in this bed and redo it. If I can save the strawberry plant, that's great. I'll put it in with some other strawberries, probably in that bed. If not, all of the green onions have gone to seed this time. Their bulbs are splitting. I'll see what I can save out of that. But a lot of the plants in here are like 2 years old. That might be the upward limit of these green onions. This is my second planting of squash. They're doing pretty good. And some beans coming up around them. Lots of cherry tomatoes ripening, coming in. Still setting lots. Oh, you can't really see that. It's still, even at the tops, setting lots of fruit. There are some of these that are a lot shorter, and they aren't getting very tall. But they're still putting off a lot of fruit. So, while the height, definitely the Chadwick cherries are winning that battle. And on that end too. But the Brad's Atomic Grape are still making a good amount of fruit for, 3/4 of the height. I have to start harvesting seed pods from my snapdragons again. The kale is still around. It's July 23rd, and I still have kale that is growing and putting off more leaves. So I know I live in Northern California. We have like a 40 to 50 degree difference day and night here. Daytime temps will be in the 80s, will be in the 90s. Nighttime temps will be in the 50s or the 60s, maybe even down to the higher 40s. So maybe that's why the kale is sticking around so long. And it doesn't taste super bitter or anything. It's not super sweet like it is in the winter, but it's not bad. It's not bolting. I'm pretty happy with the kale. Again, these are determinate tomatoes over here. Really, really, really need to next year. I love them. I love these tomatoes. Salsa tomatoes, amazing. Super firm, super low juice, but super high meat concentration. Super good. I love them. Super easy to process too. So I need to think of a better way. I think I'm going to be using more of the half wine barrel planters to do determinate tomatoes next year, and maybe filling the bed out a bit more with peppers, with the melons, with the squash, and doing those more in the beds, and doing the determinate tomatoes more in the containers. I'm also thinking about doing next year corn in that container. It's a wild thought, and I don't have much to support it, but it would be easier to keep track of like keeping earwigs out if it was that high off the ground, and then an additional height, and then I don't put any wood chip mulch. It's an idea I'm floating around. We'll see if I actually execute it next year. But yeah, that's the general garden overview.